Arrays. Organizing and storing data is a foundational concept of programming. One way we organize data in real life is by making lists. Let's make one here. New Year's resolutions, and it's an enumerated list with 1, 2, 3, and 4 with keep a journal, take a falconry class, and learn to juggle. Let's now write this list in JavaScript as an array. Let New Year's resolutions equal, then it opens an array and puts in those three things: keep a journal, take a falconry class, and learn to juggle. Arrays are JavaScript ways of making lists. Arrays can store any data types, including strings, numbers, and booleans. Like lists, arrays are ordered, meaning each item has a numbered position. Here's an array of the concepts we'll cover. Let concepts equal, it opens an array, and the strings are create arrays, array structures, and array manipulation. By the end of this lesson, you'll have another tool under your belt that helps you manage a chunk of data. Run the code, see what's logged to the console. We'll run that. And we see what's logged to the console is everything inside of New Year's resolutions here. And next. Create an array. One way we can create an array is to use an array literal. An array literal creates an array by wrapping items in square brackets. Remember from the previous exercise, arrays can store any data type. We can have an array that holds all the same types of data, or an array that holds different types of data. And it shows an array with different types of data in it. Let's take a closer look at the syntax in the array example. Go above. The array is represented by the square brackets and the content inside. Each content item inside the array is called an element. There are 3 different elements inside the array. Each element inside the array is a different data type. We can also save an array to a variable. You may have noticed we did this in the previous exercise. Let New Year's resolutions, and we saw that in the previous exercise. Let's practice by making an array of our own. Instructions. Declare a variable using const named hobbies. Const hobbies. Set it equal to an array with 3 strings inside of it. TV, make sure these are different strings. So the first hobby will be TV and coding, and running will be the third one. And let's run that. Use console.log to print hobbies to the console. Let's do that. Console.log hobbies and run. Let's move on to the next lesson. Accessing elements. Each item in an array has a numbered position known as its index. We can access individual items using their index, which is similar to referencing an item in a list based on the item's position. Arrays in JavaScript are 0 indexed, meaning the positions start counting from 0 rather than 1. Therefore, the first item in an array will be at position 0. Let's see how we would access an element in an array. In the code snippet above, cities is an array that has 3 elements. We're using bracket notation, with the index after the name of the array to access the element. Cities at index 0 will access the element at index 0 in the cities array. You can think of cities at 0 as accessing the space in memory that holds the string New York. You can also access individual characters in a string using bracket notation and the index. For instance, you can write const hello equals hello world as a string, and console.log hello at 6 would be the letter capital W. The console will display capital W since it is the character that is at index 6. Instructions. Individual elements in arrays can also be stored to variables. Create a variable named listItem and set it equal to the first item in the famous sayings array using square bracket notation. We're going to make a const called listItem set equal to a bracket. Okay, so it wants us to get the first item from famous sayings, which would be at 0 index, and store it in list item. And then it says, then use console.log to print the list item variable to the console. So console.log, and in there we're going to write list item, and let's see. And you can see fortune favors the brave, which is the first thing in the list at index 0. Now, console.log the third element in the famous sayings array using bracket notation to access the element. Do not save the element to a new variable before you log it. So we're just going to console.log and famous sayings. And after that, we need the third element. So 0 is 1, meaning 2 is 3, and we'll run that. That worked. Awesome. You can access each element in an array using the index. But what happens if you try to access an index that is beyond the last element? Try to log the item at index 3 of famous sayings to the console. What is logged to the console? So we have this at 2 already. Let's do it at 3. And run. Undefined, it's logged to the console, and we could go to the next lesson. Update elements. In the previous exercise, you learned how to access elements inside an array or a string using an index. Once you have access to an element in an array, you can update its value. In the example above, the seasons array contained the names of the 4 seasons. However, we decided that we preferred to say autumn instead of fall. The line season 3 equals autumn as a string tells our program to change the item at index 3 of the seasons array to be autumn instead of what is already there. Change the second element of the array grocery list to avocados. So in order to do that, we're going to type grocery list again, and then we're going to type what we want to access, and they want us to access the second element, which is 1, and make that equal to a string that says avocados, all undercase. And run it. That worked. And let's go to the next lesson. Arrays with let and const. You may recall that you can declare variables with both let and const keywords. Variables declared with let can be reassigned. Variables declared with the const keyword cannot be reassigned. However, elements in an array declared with const remain mutable, meaning that we can change the contents of a const array but cannot reassign a new array or a different value. The instructions below will illustrate this concept more clearly. Pay close attention to the similarities and differences between the condiments array and the utensils array as you complete the steps. Instructions. Below the 2 existing arrays, reassign the element in index 0 of condiments to mayo. Log the updated array condiments to the console. So we have condiments, and it said the index of 0. And that is going to now equal mayo, capital M, and then console.log all of the condiments. So console.log, and then just condiments. Let's see if we did that right. Perfect. Below your code from step 1, reassign condiments to be a new array that contains a single string that says mayo. Log the results to the console. Notice that you can reassign elements in an array and reassign an entire new array to a variable declared using the let keyword. All right, so below our code from step 1, we're going to reassign condiments. So condiments equals, and then just an array with just mayo in it, capital. And then you know what, I'm just going to copy and paste because we're going to console.log condiments again. And I'll run that. And that works. Below your code from step 2, reassign the last item from the utensils array to spoon. Log the updated array to the console. So we want the utensils and it was the last item of the array of utensils. So it's spork, so this is 0, 1, 2, and there you go on 3. Utensils 3 is going to be capital spoon as a string, and we'll run that. Oh, no, hold on. Log the updated array to the console. Console.log utensils, and then we'll run it. And that works for us. We'll move on to the next lesson. The .length property. One of an array's built-in properties is length, and it returns the number of items in the array. We access the .length property just like we do with strings. Check the example below. Const New Year's resolution equals 2 strings within an array, and console.log New Year's resolutions.length, the output is 2. In the example above, we log New Year's resolutions.length to the console using the following steps. We use dot notation chaining a period with a property name to the array to access the length property of the New Year's resolutions array. Then we log the length of New Year's resolution to the console. Since New Year's resolution has 2 elements, 2 would be logged to the console. When we want to know how many elements are in an array, we can access the .length property. Instructions. Find the length of the objectives array and log it to the console. Console.log objectives.length. And let's run that. 3. And that's right. Let's move on to the next lesson. The .push method. Let's learn about some built-in JavaScript methods that make working with arrays easier. These methods are specifically called on arrays to make common tasks like adding and removing elements more straightforward. One method, .push, allows us to add items to the end of an array. Here is an example of how this is used. Const item tracker, it has 3 items in the array. Item tracker.push will push item 3. It starts at 0, so even though it has 3, it has item 0, item 1, item 2. Item tracker.push is pushing item 3, item 4 into that array, and when we console log, we see that there are 5 items in the array, including item 3 and item 4. They're both at the back of the array, at the end of it. So how does push work? We can access the push method by using dot notation, connecting push to item tracker with a period. Then we call it like a function. That's because .push is a function and one that JavaScript allows us to use right on an array. .push can take a single argument or multiple arguments separated by commas. In this case, we're adding 2 elements, item 3 and item 4 to item tracker. Notice that .push changes or mutates item tracker. You might also see .push referred to as a destructive array method since it changes the initial array. If you're looking for a method that will mutate an array by adding elements to it, then .push is the method for you. Instructions. Add 2 elements to the chores array using .push. We have wash dishes, do laundry, take out trash. Then we'll say chores .push. And in there, we will push, and I think it was just 2 different things, not an array, correct? Yes, it's just 2 different things, just like this. So it's comma separated, and then 2 items to push to it. So what 2 items will we push? The chores are wash dishes, do laundry, take out the trash, eat too much, and what else do I have to do? Watch a lot of TV. And let's add that, see what happens. That did work. Use console.log to print your chores array to make sure your items were added. Okay, console.log and chores. Let's run that. Looks like we have everything. We're going to eat too much and watch a lot of TV as well. The .pop method. Another array method, .pop, removes the last item of an array. In the example above, calling .pop on the new item tracker array removed item 2 from the end. .pop does not take any arguments, it simply removes the last item of new item tracker. .pop returns the value of the last element. In the example, we store the returned value in a variable removed to be used for later. .pop is a method that mutates the initial array. When you need to mutate an array by removing the last element, use .pop. Use the pop method to remove the last element from chores. So chores.pop, and that should do it. And it did. In the line after you called chores.pop, log chores to the console and make sure it worked. Console.log chores, and we're looking for mop floor to be gone. And that's true. Cook dinner is the last thing there. Let's move on to the next lesson. More array methods. There are many more array methods than just push and pop. You can read about all the array methods that exist on the Mozilla Developer Network, the MDM array documentation. .pop and .push mutate the array on which they're called. However, there are times that we don't want to mutate the original array, and we can use non-mutating array methods. Be sure to check MDN to understand the behavior of the method you are using. Some array methods that are available to JavaScript developers include join, slice, splice, shift, unshift, and concat, amongst many others. Using these built-in methods make it easier to do some common tasks when working with arrays. Below, we will explore some methods that we have not learned yet. We will use these methods to edit a grocery list. As you complete the steps, you can consult the MDN documentation to learn what each method does. Use the .shift method to remove the first item from the array grocery list. So we know that .shift removes the first item from grocery list. .shift. And you shouldn't have to call anything. It just says to then console.log grocery list. And we'll run that. And there we are. We see that orange juice is gone. Great. Next, under the code added in step 1, use the unshift method to add a string of popcorn to the beginning of the groceries list. After calling unshift on the groceries list, log grocery list to the console. You may wish to delete the console.log statement from the previous step. We're just going to use it. We'll just keep it there since we have to log it. And we will say grocery list.unshift. And what we want to put in there is some popcorn. Let's run that. That worked perfectly. And one more, oh no, a couple more, a few more. Number 3, you're in a hurry, so you decide to ask a friend to help you out with grocery shopping. You want him to pick up the bananas, coffee beans, and brown rice. Under the code you added for step 2, use .slice to provide your friend with a list of these 3 things. Log this part of the list to the console. Unlike the 2 previous checkpoints, you should do both of these steps in one line. Read about .slice and MDN's slice documentation. Let's bring that up quick. Okay, so slice. This says, here's your animals array. It's going to slice at 2 and console log it. And the output is an array, a new array that starts at camel. So it starts at the point, so this would be 0, 1. It starts at whatever you put in there and goes to the end. Now, here's one with 2 points. Console.log, animals.slice, 2, 4. So this would include the camel, which is at 2, the duck, which is at 3, but not the elephant at 4. So the first argument is inclusive, and the second argument is going to be exclusive, and we could remember that as we head back. So the console log one more here, it's animals.slice 1 through 5. It's going to have at 1 is bison, so that works there, and at 5 would be nothing. So it stops at elephant. So yeah, it is exclusive. Let's head back and look at .slice here and see what we need to do. So this is going to be a console.log. It wants us to do this all in one line. And then grocery list dot slice. And in there, they want bananas, which are 0, 1, it's inclusive. And then it needs to stop after brown rice. So 0, 1, 2, this is 3, and we need to put 4 for the exclusive number. And let's see if that worked. That worked perfectly. Let's go down to number 4 here. After calling slice on the grocery list, log the grocery list to the console one more time. Notice that the grocery list array still contains the same items it had in step 2. That means .slice is not mutating. You can confirm this in the link in the previous step. It looks like it just wants us to console log this one more time, just the grocery list. Let's check that. Let's run that. And we can see there it is. And it's saying at the beginning, it was the same as at the end. Oh, so it's saying .slice did not mutate this list itself. What it did is return a new array that we logged. It didn't mutate the original array. That's what it was saying there. Let's go to number 5. Let's find the index of a particular element in grocery list using index of. Call index of on grocery list to find the index of the element pasta and save the return value to a const variable named pasta index. There's a lot in there, so we're going to start right now just with pasta index. So const pasta index is going to equal grocery list dot index of. Okay. Then log pasta index to the console. You may remove other console.log statements to declutter the terminal. That's probably a good idea. I'm going to get rid of at least these two. Now here we're doing the index of, so let's do pasta. And this should show us where the index of pasta is after we console.log pasta index. And let's run that. And that worked great. All right, we went through a few of these, shift, unshift, and index of. That worked great. Let's move on. Arrays and functions. Throughout the lesson, we went over arrays being mutable or changeable. Well, what happens if we try to change an array inside a function? Does the array keep the change after the function call, or is it scoped to inside the function? Take a look at the following example where we call .push on an array inside a function. Recall the .push method mutates or changes an array. Let's go over what happened in the example. The flowers array that has 3 elements. The function addFlower has a parameter of ARR, uses .push to add a lily element into ARR. We call addFlower with an argument of flowers, which will execute the code inside addFlower. We check the value of flowers, and it now includes the lily element. The array was mutated. So when you pass an array into a function, if the array is mutated inside the function, that change will be maintained outside the function as well. You might also see this concept explained as pass by reference, since what we're actually passing the function is a reference to where the variable memory is stored and changing the memory. Instructions. In main.js, there is an array concept. There is also a function changeArray that will assign the element to index 3 of the array to mutated. The function changeArr was called with an argument of concept. Underneath the function call, log concept to the console to check if this reassignment mutated the array. Okay, console.log concept. And run that. So what we have going on here is arrays can be mutated, and that's all undercase. And we have a function that changes the array. And what we do is we give it an array. It takes the array at index 3 and change the array at index 3 to capital mutated. And that's what was printed onto the screen right there. Great. Let's double check what happens if we mutate an array using a built-in method inside a function. Under the console.log statement, define another function named removeElement that takes a parameter of new ARR. Inside the function body call .pop on new ARR. So we're going to get ourselves a function. I'm going to do the fat arrow style. So const remove element equals, and it's going to take in new ARR, a capital, little fat arrow function, and inside there it's going to get the new ARR dot pop, and let's try that out. Run. That works perfectly. Call remove element with an argument of concept. So we want to say remove element, and we are going to give it concept and run that. After calling remove element concept, check the value of concept by logging it to the console. Notice that in both cases, the changes to the array was maintained outside of the function. Console.log concept. And there we go. We've now popped off that last piece. Mutated is gone, and that worked perfectly. Let's go to the next one. Nested arrays. Earlier, we mentioned that arrays can store other arrays. When an array contains another array, it is known as a nested array. Examine the example below. Const nested array equals an array with an array of 1 in it, comma, with an array with 2, 3 inside that array, and then the closing array. To access the nested arrays, we can use bracket notation with the index value, just like we did to access any other element. Notice that nested R1 will grab the element in index 1, which is the array 2, 3. Then if we wanted to access the elements within the nested array, we can chain or add on more bracket notation with index values. In the second console.log statement, we have 2 bracket notations chained to nested R. We know that nested R1 is the array 2, 3. Then to grab the first element from the array, we use nested R1, 0, and we get the value of 2. Instructions. Let's make a nested array. Create a variable number clusters. Assign as its value an array with 3 array elements. The first array element should hold the elements 1 and 2 in that order. Okay, so let's do this with const number cluster, and we have an array now. And there's going to be 3 array elements. The first array element should hold elements 1 and 2 in that order. Okay, so 1, 2, and then we'll comma between, we'll open another array, and this is going to be 3, 4, comma between, open one more array for 5, 6, and now we have an array of 3 arrays. That's what they're looking for, I think. We'll find out right now. No. Did you create number clusters with an S? No, I didn't. I left off the S. That works. Great. Awesome. You made a nested array. Now declare a variable named target using the const keyword and assign to access the element 6 inside number clusters. Okay, so they want us to const target equals, and then we'll have number clusters, and they want the number 6, which is at the end. So there are 3 array elements, 0, 1, and 2. So we want to get to 2. And then within 2, we want to get to 6. So we have 0 and 1. So we just put 1 there. And that should give us the number 6 and const target. Let's run that. That is what happened. Great. That worked perfectly. Let's move on. Review arrays. Nice work. In this lesson, we learned these concepts regarding arrays. Arrays are lists that store data in JavaScript. Arrays are created with brackets. Each item inside an array is at a number position or index starting at 0. We can access one item in an array using its index, with syntax like myArray, square brackets, 0. We can also change an item in an array using its index with syntax like myArray at 0 equals new string. Arrays have a length property, which allows you to see how many items are in an array. Arrays have their own methods, including push and pop, which add and remove items from an array respectively. Arrays have many methods that perform different tasks, such as .slice and .shift. You can find documentation at Mozilla Developer Network website. Some built-in methods are mutating, meaning the method will change the array, while others are not mutating. You can always check the documentation. Variables that contain arrays can be declared with let or const. Even when declared with const, arrays are still mutable. However, a variable declared with const cannot be reassigned. Arrays mutated inside of a function will keep that change even outside the function. Arrays can be nested inside other arrays. To access elements in nested arrays, chain indices using bracket notation. Learning how to work with and manipulate arrays will help you work with chunks of data. Instructions, if you're looking for more practice, it looks like we finished this off. We'll see what's up next and get started on it.